fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you, glad you came too. Like you said, when you know you got moves. You spit game and you know you spit.
Hello and welcome back to the Fastlane Collective. Zandvoort, we have so much to talk about this episode. So buckle in, strap in, because we're going to be here for a while. But before we get into everything, I am joined by the lovely Daniella. Daniella, how are you doing? I missed doing this podcast with you. I feel like it's been ages.
Yeah, it has been a while since we've done an episode together. We did one a few weeks ago, but we've not done one like just the two of us in a while. But yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm just kind of, having a bit of a chill time at the moment. I'm starting a new job at the weekend, which I'm excited for. And I've spent my weekend seeing friends, going to the pub to watch F1 and football, and just kind of like had a really wholesome weekend. How was your weekend, Yas? How are you?
I've been doing grand. Again, managed to actually watch the F1 this weekend. I'm switching jobs as well. A lot of job changes at the minute for me and Daniela. But now I can actually get time on my Sunday to watch the F1, which is something that I really missed with my last job. I'm going back to uni soon, continuing with my sports media degree. So a lot in the works. But I think we should just jump straight in to the Dutch Grand Prix. I mean, my goodness, so many things happened with, every single team. But I want to kind of mention some news again. The news has kind of been a bit dry in F1 recently. We haven't had any big, moving teams, shake-ups like we had with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari. But I wanted to talk about the actual circuit itself, Zandvoort, as next year is going to be the last kind of year that it's going to be on the calendar, which is really upsetting. This is a track that I have always wanted to go to, and I doubt I'll be able to afford it next year, so I can wave goodbye to those dreams. But Daniela, what are your opinions on Zandvoort? Should we keep it? Do you think the track is too small for the cars that we have now, or do you think we should kind of move on and get a different, newer track on the grid?
I do actually kind of like this track, so I'm a little bit disappointed that next year's only going to be its final year. I think they're going to kind of lose out on a really big fan base, because obviously Max has a lot of fans and they all go crazy at the Dutch Grand Prix for him, and it's going to be weird not having that on the calendar, knowing that you're going to go, the next race is going to be Max's race, where the entire grandstands is just full of orange. So I think that, I don't know, I just find it a bit strange thinking that next year we're not going to have that. I feel like it's something that, everyone kind of, it's a race that everyone knows is that is Max's race, and that's it. You won't see any other merch there. It will just be straight up orange and Red Bull merch. So I don't know, I feel a little bit disappointed it's not going to be there, because I think I do enjoy this track, and I think that's proven with the race that we had yesterday. But maybe something more exciting will come on. Maybe we might even get a track that we've not had before. I think it's just time to, it's nice that we're changing things up, even though it just scared me a little, because every time we get a new track I'm like, oh my god, I hate this track. But I do think I probably will miss it. Do you agree with me, or are you oh my god, I hate this track, it's too small?
I understand people saying that it's too small for the big cars that we have now, but it's such a cracker track. I mean, that big embankment in turn 3, I think it's incredible. And this race, I have note after note after note. Literally, you're going to be seeing me scroll a lot on my laptop today, trying to cover everything, because so much happened in this race. I know not every race we have a lot being covered when it comes to the Dutch Grand Prix, but it's definitely going to be something that I'm going to miss. But I'm really hoping that if we don't have this, we're not going to have this Grand Prix anymore, that we get one in Africa. That is the one place we don't go to. That one, come on, we need a Grand Prix in Africa. So I'm kind of fingers crossed, because that's been a big topic of discussion in the last couple of years of Formula One. So I'm hoping, although we're losing this incredible track, we get something better. But I'm like you, Daniela. I will see a new track and go, don't like it. No. Like, I don't like change. And I think we're at the same kind of level with that. We're like, no, we're keep it the same. My next question for you would be, what would you rate the race? Because again, a lot happened, but do you think it was kind of just silly mistakes, or do you think it was like a good solid race that we've had this season?
I'm going to give it like a solid 7 because I think that I found it entertaining would be the word I'd probably use. Like, I was gripped at times throughout the race and I enjoyed what I saw, but I wouldn't say like it was the most like crazy battles and like you were kind of had like a pairing that were just constantly at it the whole time and stuff like that. And obviously like Oscar took the lead and ran with it, and then we kind of didn't really see much after that of him. But I think in other aspects of the race there was a lot that happened that made it really interesting. Like, we obviously had spins and crashes and DNFs, and there were like battles, and like there were moments that were good, and drivers going from being at the back of the grid to being in the points, and like all of the juicy stuff that I love. But that I didn't quite have like that gripping, like this is the best race. And for that I feel like to be fair, it needs to be kind of a big fight at the front, and we don't really have that. I thought, okay, like we did have like glimpses like at the start with Max taking Norris, and like we had moments where like it was like, oh, who's gonna be 1, 2, 3? Is this gonna change around? But it's like a glimmer, and then it kind of like disappears, and you're like, oh, okay, that was actually not as exciting as I was hoping. But for the race overall, I did really enjoy it, so that's why I give it a 7. What did you think? Would you agree? Is 7 good, or do you completely disagree and are thinking, Daniela, what the hell are you thinking?
No, I am with you. 7 for me as well. And we seem to just be like getting the same numbers for things and like same order for things.
Yeah.
Me and Daniela just have the same opinion. Like, if you watched our mid-season kind of review recap, me and Daniela just had the same opinion against Brianne. So we're just in tune, girl. We just we're just the same person.
That might not make like, the most exciting podcast if we agree on everything, but I think it is quite interesting that we do have a similar opinion. Like, say, like we've also, for those who don't know, kind of almost had like a similar like career path up until this point. Like, we both did like performing arts and like acting, and then moved into motorsport, like journalism and presenting and that kind of stuff. And so it's weird that like the similarities just keep on going.
I know, we just copy each other. I mean, I think because our opinion is the same, our opinion is the right opinion. So if anyone disagrees, sorry, you're wrong. Please don't hear this in the comments, guys. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about McLaren. I mean, what a weekend. They've had a very mixed bag. So we'll talk about Oscar Piastri first. I mean, he led the race from start to finish in, a commanding display. His 7th win of the season in the 13 races that we've had. He now holds a 34-point lead over Norris with 9 races remaining for this season. He has claimed his first career Grand Slam. So he got on pole, fastest lap, every lap he led. And he, of course, was able to celebrate alongside his manager, Mark Webber. I mean, Mark Webber even mentioned on the broadcast that he's called Oscar Piastri the next Australia's next world championship winner. I can't get my words out because I'm so happy for Oscar. An incredible win for Oscar. But then on the other side of the garage, poor Lando Norris. I mean, we've all seen that photo of him with his head down on the on the embankment. So Lando Norris was running strongly in P2, as we all saw, until an oil leak. I cannot speak today. Until an oil leak ended his race, just out of nowhere. Smoke in the cockpit, with only 7 laps remaining, which I think is it's just the hardest thing to watch as a fan. I mean, if this happened early in the race, I could have got over it. So it's just been a lot for McLaren. Post-race, Norris even admitted that it hurt, but promised to keep fighting. And I don't know about you, Daniela, but a lot of people are drawing comparisons to the 2016 World Championship between Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, as Lewis Hamilton had the same kind of thing in Malaysia in 2016, that he lost the race due to mechanical failure, and that's what lost him the championship. So my long-winded question to you is, do you think this is what's gonna lose the championship for Lando?
Oh, I don't know. I think it could be a possibility, but I think, yeah. But then this just makes the same question, like, what is the reliability issue here? Like, could this be something that's then in the future going to affect both cars? Could we see Oscar then struggle in a few races' time and have a mechanical failure? Or, like, this is now kind of a little bit riding on Oscar either making a mistake or DNFing out of his control and that to kind of almost keep the championship alive. So I have this fear now that, like, as you said, this could be 2016 all over again, and now Lando's going to miss out on getting his dream of becoming a world champion this year, and Oscar's going to take it. But then even if you asked me at the start of the season, I would have told you that, well, and I did predict this, that Oscar's going to win. And I still like sit here and I will say that, and it is people who definitely disagree. I just think that Oscar has something that little bit more about being a world champion than, like, in terms of his personality and drive in a different way to Lando. Yeah, I'm gonna, you know what? I've just got rambled on for ages. The simple answer is yes, I think this is probably going to cost Lando the championship, but I think other factors will also need to kind of be introduced into it to fully make it happen, because 34 points right now isn't horrific, because if, say, for example, Lando was to win the next race and Oscar DNFs, then there'll only be a 10-point gap between them. So, like, I think it will need to be consistent of, like, Lando really struggling and not doing well for that to happen at this point in the championship. And I personally believe that it's going to go right down to the wire. Yas, this is a question I was going to wait until the end, but now I feel like it's the appropriate time to ask you of,
Ooh.
when do you think the championship will be won and by who?
Ooh. Oh my goodness. I would love to say let's have it right to the last race, right to Abu Dhabi. And of course I would love Oscar to win. I mean, again, same opinion. We have the same opinion that Oscar Piastri is going to win this year. Oh, it's difficult. It's really difficult, this one. I'm going to say in like in like 2 or 3 races, I think we're going to properly know who's going to win it. Because this is my question to you, because it's something that I kept thinking of when all this was going on. So again, 34 points ahead. What do you think tensions will finally rise between Lando and Oscar? Because they've been able to keep it quite mutual, but we know that Lando, you know, he really wants his championship. He's been with McLaren for so long. He is like the poster boy for McLaren. Do you think he's going to just get frustrated that it's Oscar that's in the lead? Do you think?
You know what? And this is probably a controversial opinion. I thought it would have already have happened by now. I thought that Lando would kind of lose his cool a little bit. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. It's just that Lando has been kind of that number one driver and like the golden boy at McLaren since he started. And it wasn't up until when Oscar joined that, like, that's when things started to kind of change a little bit, because that everyone started to realise, like, how good Oscar is, and they're kind of on par with each other, and maybe Oscar has that slight little head up than Lando. But I think that I kind of want to say that I feel like if it was to happen, it would kind of be within the last 3 races when tensions are really going to be high, because either of them are in grasp of reach of the championship, and, like, maybe one driver gets favoured more than the other, and things are just going to kind of start to lose a little bit of control. But right now I feel like we're in this place of, like, actually them being quite steady, and I don't, even though that Lando DNF'd this weekend, it's not a reflection on his performance or of Oscar. So I don't think he's going to use that, or even of the team. Like, he's not going to use that and be like, you've damaged me, you've hurt me, I'm going to come back and like take this away from you. Like, that's not what's the situation that's going on here. Like, it was out of everybody's control that this DNF happened. And I think it would look bad on Lando's nature if he was then to take that out on either the team or Oscar. So I think right now they're in kind of this place of quite like cool and calm, and you're not always going to get on with your teammate. That's inevitable. They're your biggest rival at the end of the day, especially if you're fighting first and second in the championship. But I think for now they're getting on as best as they can, and I think that is what is helping them both stay consistently in the top two, but also keeping McLaren at the top of the Constructors' Championship. If we had a repeat of last year, which thankfully we haven't, and honestly, that has made me so impressed by McLaren. And I think I touched on this a little bit in our like mid-season review episode, but McLaren rules haven't come in this year, and it's made a much more like smoother and softer environment at McLaren, to the point where like everything feels a little bit unnervingly calm. Like, I just am like, I feel calm, but like, why do I feel calm? Like, is something going to happen? Like, I'm nervous that things are too calm, which is why I think that it's going to reach that final like 3 to 5 races left. And that's when everything is kind of flip on its head. And I think that's where it's going to get a bit feisty. I also am going to predict something that I feel like is, again, probably a controversial opinion that people are definitely not going to agree with me. But I think it will make it interesting if it does happen. If the championship starts to look more like it's in Lando's favour, or Oscar has a problem, DNFs, or just has like a bad race in some way, closer to the end of the championship, I think we might then see a slightly different side to Oscar that we haven't seen before. Yas, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is really controversial?
Ooh, I like that. Because again, Oscar is just, not that he's doesn't like push himself, or I don't know what the right word would be for it, but he's quite calm and collective. You don't really see angry Oscar, like get your elbows out kind of Oscar. So I would kind of live for that, to be honest, and that's awful to say, because I don't wish him to like do poorly or anything, but I definitely think deep down Oscar has that like tough fight in him. And you have to be in the sport because, you know, everything's on the line. You kind of uproot your entire life to come to Formula One, all the money that goes into Formula One, and getting you to Formula One is just immense. So I don't know, we shall see. But I like these controversial opinions, Daniella. I think we should do like a segment of like Daniella's controversial opinions of the week.
I feel like we should, because this is becoming kind of a reoccurrence every few episodes that I come out with something that I'm like, we might get cancelled. So maybe this is something we add. I'll bring it up with Brianna, and we'll see if we can make this a thing. If this is what people want to hear, my extremely random and controversial thoughts that come into my head that are going to annoy everyone.
Well, to those who are listening, let us know in the comments down below if you would like those controversial opinions. I certainly would. So if you're not going to ask for them, I'm going to ask for them every episode. So I have just a couple more questions. I know we've been going on a bit about McLaren, but it's just a spicy situation this weekend. Lando Norris, again, a Lando Norris centered question, but we've seen before that when pressure builds up on Lando, he can't really, it gets to him a bit. And again, with the championship slipping away, do you think the pressure is really going to crack down on him? Do you think it's going to make him? Or do you think it's going to break him, this pressure of the championship slipping from his grasp?
I think right now, as I've kind of said about the whole kind of staying calm, I feel like it's going to take a little bit more to rattle Lando. If you'd said that, if you'd asked me this question last year, I'd have told you that this would have rattled Lando, and that would have been like the end of him getting this championship. I do think this year there's been a new level of maturity from Lando in terms of kind of not letting every moment in his eyes reflect who he is as a driver. I think that sometimes he will take his mistakes too personally, that, you know, like, he'll beat himself up about it. And I completely get that. I do the same thing. I, in some ways, really relate to Lando. And I think that he brings this new energy to Formula One that we don't get to see, which is relatability. So many drivers come in and they're like, no, we don't believe in mental health and we're tough. And it's like all this kind of like toxic masculinity. But I think Lando does show kind of like the raw emotions of what it actually takes to be a human and be a racing driver. But I think that he's been better at kind of handling it. Like, he's still going to show that. It's still a big part of who he is. He's spoken a lot about mental health over his time in Formula One. And I think that he's very open about the fact that sometimes like things do get a bit too much for him. But I think this year there's this sense of like, okay, I'm the one that's in control. And like, yes, there is that saying of you're only as good as your last race. And I think to the point Lando took that too literally, where now he's kind of like, that is true, but also I know that I can do better, or I know what I need to work on. And I know that this result doesn't define me in my whole career up until this point. Like, I think that's part of the reason why it took him so long to get his first race win. And now that he's had that, that's giving him a new level of confidence. I think that has what has pushed him further in this season, that he's been able to prove that, you know, he is a race winner and not just like a one and done kind of guy. So I think right now my answer is like no, but I think that if he does lose out on the championship, and like, so say if it gets really, really close between the two of them, because right now 34 points is like, it's close, but like it's not as close as it has been throughout the rest of the season. If that narrows down and he starts making some mistakes quite consistently, that's when I think it's going to break him, because that's when that's when he loses his mentality a little bit. So I think he will right now be okay. I think the next few races, things are going to be smooth sailing as long as nothing drastic happens. But as soon as kind of we've got 2 or 3 things happening at once, it's all going to rise. It's all going to start to bubble up here. And then he's just going to get more and more. And he's just going to be overthinking it so much that then it explodes. Well, like Oscar can handle it in a better way, that he doesn't let it explode, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. I mean, the amount of pressure that these drivers have on their shoulders, whether you're at the top of the grid, the back of the grid, is immense. So, you know, I couldn't be able to handle all of that pressure. So it's such, you know, it's easy for me to say, do you think he'll handle the pressure? And if he doesn't, he's a bad driver. Like, no, it's, yeah, I've got to give it to them, whether Lando wins this season or makes a mistake. And the same goes for Oscar. It's just, at the end of the day, you kind of just got to go, wow, we've had such an incredible title fight so far this season. And no matter who it goes to, I mean, it's well deserved. And I would not want to be in their position with all the pressure, with all the fans constantly, you know, I want you to win, I want you to win. So you've got to give it to them. McLaren they've just been amazing this year, and last year as well, but this year they've just been on another level. So well done, McLaren.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I feel like we're both McLaren fans, and it feels rewarding to know that a team are kind of working hard to not jeopardize anything. Like, last year was a difficult time being a McLaren fan. That even though they won the Constructors' Championship, seeing how they dealt managing 2 of the top drivers that are in Formula One was stressful, and it kind of made me like deter a little bit from McLaren. I kind of was like, I don't like the way that you're handling these situations. This year, it's like they all took that winter break and completely reassessed everything, worked out exactly where things went wrong. And I didn't have faith that this year would be at this point. I thought, okay, yes, they're going to like be winning the Constructors' Championship, but I also thought we were going to see constant switches around, like, no, this driver now needs to be in front and this one needs to come back, and then they're going to collide because they're bassing. Like, I just thought it was going to be a disaster, and actually McLaren have handled it so well in comparison to last year that I feel proud to be a McLaren fan. And I know that I'm obviously showing a bias right now, but I genuinely like it. I think it's true. If they hadn't have turned things around, I don't think this year I'll always be a McLaren fan, but I don't think I would have been like as invested if things were like dramatic and crazy like they were last year. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, teams need to take note of how McLaren is running their team, running their strategy, running letting their teammates just battle it out on track. And, I'm not saying let's just collide into each other. They have the rule, just don't ruin each other's race and end it for both of you. So I really have to give it to McLaren that you have done incredible. Not that you are listening to this, but well done, McLaren. And moving on to a team that should take notes from McLaren when it comes to a good work environment, Red Bull. Red Bull, a kind of a positive weekend for them this season. This weekend. Max Verstappen, he couldn't catch the McLarens but inherited P2 after Norris's retirement, delivered a podium for the Dutch fans. I mean, the grandstands, again, I would kill to go to Zandvoort. I mean, the atmosphere is just something else. And again, so sad we're not going to see this in the next coming years. Max was quoted saying, "We didn't have the pace, but a podium at home is always great." And then we had Yuki in 9th place, which is pretty good for Yuki. Yuki's he's had a bit of a complicated season with Red Bull so far. So I just wanted to kind of throw it to you, Daniela. Yuki Tsunoda. What do you think about Yuki in that Red Bull? Because I am constantly on edge of anyone in that Red Bull seat, but especially Yuki. I think there's been, so much talk. He's going to go in and, do incredible things. Like, this is where he's supposed to be. Do you think that Red Bull are going to keep him on and mature his talent? Or are they going to, at the end of the season, throw him out like they do with everybody else?
I'm not really sure what Red Bull have got lined up. I know that people online have been making little jokes about them coming and knocking on Isaac's door and Isack kind of being like, "No, I'm not going." But I think each week Yuki is progressing. I think each race he is getting stronger, and is learning how to deal with the car. And maybe the results don't always reflect that, but I genuinely think that he is making progress. It is just baby steps, which unfortunately is not something that Red Bull like and take on board. If you aren't winning every race, then they want you out of that car, which is proven at the start of the season. It's hard because they kick someone out after 2 races, yet they've let Yuki, who also has equally struggled, they've kept him in the whole season. And I think they're starting to realise that they're running out of options. They know that they're never going to find anyone who can challenge Max in the same way. But equally, we're now celebrating having both cars in the points, which, if you said in 2017, 2018 that we would be celebrating that both cars are actually finishing races in the points, I would be quite mind blown, because that's when Red Bull were a lot more competitive in terms of both their drivers. Now maybe that was because they had Daniel Ricciardo in the seat, and I'm not going to start a whole Daniel Ricciardo rant/bias here, but I think that they are running out of options, because I don't think Isaac's going to take going in the Red Bull. Now, I know everyone's probably screaming, being like, "What the hell are you talking about? If Red Bull came knocking at your door, you're going to take it." But I think that to be able to prove himself, if he needs to work more with RB, show that he can, consistently get good results, obviously coming off of the back of getting his first podium, making that jump to Red Bull, he knows it's going to be tough, and he knows that his job is on the line. But here, he's really proving himself in V-Carb at the moment. He's showcasing that he can really bring out the best of the car. And I know that people were concerned about him before he came into F1, when he was testing the Red Bull cars and the V-Carb cars in FP1 sessions. People were like, "Oh, he doesn't seem like he's doing that great," and there was a little bit of kind of nervousness around him coming into F1, and I think he's proven everyone wrong, especially after that first race when he DNF'd. And so I think that Red Bull are kind of we don't know where to go from here. We don't know what our next steps are. So I have a slight feeling that they might keep Yuki for next season. I also think that Honda could be a part of this, and money, classically, because it's F1. But I think that over time, Yuki is going to progress more. I'm not going to say he's going to be the next Max Verstappen. I'm not going to say he's going to even get podiums in this car. I think as long as he can finish a little bit more consistently in the top 10, then Red Bull will kind of accept that. Because right now, like, what else are they going to do? Who else are they going to go to? Who else is going to be bringing home podiums and race wins in that car? I don't think they have anyone else that they can rely on. I know that they have a really, really fantastic program for young drivers, but I don't think anyone is up to the challenge to fight that Red Bull and get it into a race-winning position. I don't believe there's anyone else that can do that right now. And so it's either that they promote Isack, which I feel like is a big risk, or they continue having Yuki. I just personally don't think that the other rookies that they've got within their program will be quite ready for the challenge. And I know that I'm someone who massively advocates for the rookies and I want young talent in Formula One. I just think right now with the state of Red Bull, they've just lost their team principal. Things are very much up in the air for them, which makes me feel, I keep using this word today, but nervous. Like, I just feel a little bit on edge when we talk about Red Bull because I don't know which way they're going to go. They've got one thing that's consistent, and that's Max Verstappen. Everything else around them is kind of like falling apart. And if they don't have Max, that whole team would be shambles. I think that team would be falling down the grid as we speak. But it's Max that is being able to prove time and time again that he can keep this car together. He can keep this team together. But they haven't found someone that can match that yet. And so I think they're going to continue with Yuki. And if Yuki continues to progress, even if it is just step by step, then I think that is what's going to be the more desirable option right now. And I was so nervous about having Yuki in that seat. I actually didn't want it to happen because I thought Yuki was going to get a lot of hate, especially my biggest concern was going to be the racism that was going to come with Yuki being in that seat. Now, there probably has been racism that has been directed at him. I feel quite lucky and privileged to have not seen it and not witnessed the racism that I presume has been sent towards him. I don't know if it has, but just with the nature of this sport and sport in general and how the public are, I think it's inevitable that people were going to behave like this, which I hate to say. I hate sitting there saying it's inevitable that someone's going to be racist. That should not be the case. There should be no racism in this sport or in this world. And my fear was that Yuki was going to get loads of hate. And I really didn't want to see that happen if he couldn't compete against Max in the way that Red Bull need. And ultimately he hasn't, but he doesn't deserve racism, like, full stop. I've now gone on a whole rant about racism. Oh my God, I don't know where I'm going with this anymore. But what I'm just trying to say is like, I was scared about Yuki going in that Red Bull seat because I was worried about how people were going to react if he didn't come out scoring consistent podiums and like matching Max. And he hasn't yet, but I think there is more potential there than there has been in previous seasons.
You've made so many good points, like so many good points. And I totally agree with you on all of it, especially with the racism in the F1. I definitely feel it, when it comes to anyone of colour within the F1 world. And it's hard to watch. I'm mixed race, so it's really hard for me to watch that, a sport that I love so much is not accepting other people of colour and wouldn't accept me, stuff like that. Again, this is kind of like obvious, but don't be racist, guys. Don't be racist or sexist. Like, come on, like, these drivers are people and, they've given up so much of their lives. Like, some people move all the way around the world just to get a chance in Formula One. And the fact we even have to say this can be so frustrating. But talking about Red Bull with the team changes and the constant like ins and outs of that team, and it's such a toxic environment, do you think next year, because we've had so many members leave, Christian Horner, it will be less toxic? Do you think Red Bull are going to go in a different direction? Or do you think we're still going to be stuck in this rut of like, it's Max Verstappen team. And I'm not saying this is Max Verstappen's fault, but with a team that is so based around him, If he goes, it's going to fall apart even more and probably become more toxic. Just what are your opinions with the future, basically, of Red Bull? I said that in a very long-winded way, but there's so many aspects to Red Bull. I kind of had to touch on them all.
Yeah, I think that if we keep losing specific members of the team that have made Red Bull be what it is, and I'm not saying be what it is in terms of being a race-winning team, but be what it is in terms of a hostile environment, then I think that Red Bull have this opportunity to work out how they can be a race-winning team again, but without having to ruin everybody's mental well-being and lives in the process. So I'm not going to name names. I'm going to leave this up to the listeners' imaginations here. But there are probably some people at Red Bull whose time has come to an end and maybe need to step out of Red Bull and allow someone new to fill the position in order for Red Bull to come back. It is hard. They have lost their team principal who did kind of make Red Bull who they are, and, you know, they had a lot of success at that team. Red Bull's had a lot of success in its time that it's been around, and a big part of that was Christian Horner. I hate to say it, but so losing someone that kind of influential into the team's kind of making of who they are, it is going to then affect, like, their overall performance, right? They're not going to have the fundamentals, and they've also lost Adrian Newey, who again has proven time and time again how beneficial he was to that team. So I think that they're kind of going to have like this dip where they're going to start falling, but then they're going to be able to turn it around and come back up again. And I think that, you know, in like maybe 5 years from now, they'll be back winning championships consistently. But I think right now they are going to kind of have that fall, which I feel like is to be expected when your whole team is practically falling apart. People are getting fired, people are leaving, you've got new team principals coming in, like, everything is changing. And like, even if you're a team that's only had a team principal with you for like 2 years and you've got a new one coming in, that does change the dynamic like massively. So when you've had someone who's been a part of the team from the beginning leave and you get a new team principal coming in, again, that's massively going to change the game for the whole team, not just the drivers, not just the engineers, the entire team. And I think that's kind of what we've kind of like almost like glossed over. It's been like, yay, Christian Horner's gone, but also like, what does that mean for the team? Now, I was a bit of an advocate for Christian Horner to go. I will sit here and say that. But also, I'm aware that, you know, there are times when like this, it's not going to be smooth sailing. It's not going to instantly fix the team. It's going to be a progression and a journey that builds them back up to where they need to be. And we need to be a bit more understanding of it. Because I feel like right now everyone's just been like, oh, well, Christian Horner's gone, so why are we not like winning races? And why isn't, you know, Red Bull being like more friendly and like less hostile and less cutthroat? Like, it's just not how it's gonna, like, it's not gonna be an immediate like switch. It's gonna be a process, and I think that eventually things will change. And I think Red Bull kind of need to realize that, you know, like, motorsport and Formula One and the world is evolving, and that not everything kind of needs to be like life and death when it isn't life and death. Like, obviously every racing driver puts their life on the line going out every day, but winning a race versus not winning a race isn't always going to be life or death. Yes, it is in terms of championship, and obviously the higher up in the championship the more money you get, but sometimes I think they could have progressed a driver in a way that then built them up as a team, but instead they saw that driver's not winning us any points or winning any podiums or wins, so we're just going to get rid of them after 2 races. Where I think something that's interesting, if we compare them to McLaren, they took Lando Norris on as a development driver at 19. They then put him in the F1 car, kind of with not much expectation to just see where he would go. And now they've developed him, and now he's a driver that is in contention for the championship, along with Oscar, right? The pair of them, they both developed over their time at McLaren, and McLaren are willing to do that. They're willing to bring in a rookie, and some of the other teams like this too. Bring in a rookie and develop them to get the best out for the team, where Red Bull want you to come in and be number one from the get-go, and if you are not, then you're out. And that hasn't always proven to have worked. And I feel like McLaren right now are proving that point, and Red Bull are also proving that point, because they've had that problem like with Yuki, with Liam. It's just not working. They need to come up with a different plan, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, agreed. Red Bull, you've got a tricky road ahead of you. And I just really hope, Red Bull becomes a less toxic environment. We've heard it, God, how many years now? Year after year, we keep hearing about just the things that kind of go on at Red Bull. And it's really disappointing because they're such a popular team. And also, they've had so much success. And you've got Max Verstappen, who I know people don't like him, but I think he's just there to race and then piss off home. He just loves the sport, and I just hope Red Bull kind of take a turn around, and with a new team principal, hopefully we'll see that in the next coming years. But we're speaking into the future. Let's kind of bring it back to this weekend. So, like you touched on, Daniela, Isack Hadjar. Woo! Isack! I mean, what? First off, when he qualified P4, I was shocked. Again, as usual, I thought, am I reading this wrong? Am I seeing this wrong? I doubt my ability to just read sometimes. I'm like, is this fake news on Twitter? What is this? But he qualified P4, incredible stuff, and he managed to get up to P3. And I know you could say, well, Lando Norris retired DNF, so it's kind of on merit, but no, he still, Isack Hadjar, managed to keep P4 for that entire race. And he deserves this podium. He really does deserve this podium. I mean, he is the second youngest French driver to score a podium. This is Racing Bull's first podium since 2021, with Pierre Gasly when it was AlphaTauri. Incredible stuff. I know he broke his trophy as well, but Isack Hadjar, I literally do not know what to say. But I do have a question for you, Daniela. Of course, we've had now 2 surprise feel-good podium winners. Nico Hülkenberg was the other one. Who do you think is the better story? Do you think Isack Hadjar delivered the best surprise podium of the season, or do you think Nico Hülkenberg delivered the best surprise podium?
I love Isack, and I'm so happy for his result. However, he has not waited years and years and years for his first F1 podium. Nico Hülkenberg has waited the longest time in history to get an F1 podium. And so for me, I'm going to have to say Nico, because that was the most well-deserved podium I've ever seen. I got so emotional seeing him win that. It was a beautiful moment. Isack, like, obviously I'm rooting for any rookie and all rookies at all time. And I wanted Isack to get on that podium so badly. So badly. And I didn't, at the start of the race, I didn't think he was going to hold on to P4. I really thought that, he's qualified P4, but I don't think he's going to stay there. I think he's going to drop further back. I was expecting him to kind of finish P8, P9. So when he maintains that throughout the whole race, that for me is what has affirmed that he is a brilliant driver, because when you know that you've got guys behind you with more experience, have faster cars, have proven themselves time and time again behind you, you're going to kind of be shitting yourself. And so the fact that he maintained P4 the entire race, which then obviously got converted to P3 after Lando's DNF, I think it was spectacular, but it doesn't, in my opinion, compete with Nico Hülkenberg's podium. Because if you've waited that long for something, and then a rookie does it a few races later, and everyone's then being like, no, that was the moment of the season, you're going to feel a little bit like, this is everything I've worked for, and you guys don't care anymore, because I'm a team that no one talks about. I just think that, for me, Hülkenberg's podium is probably my favourite moment of the year so far. And not much is probably going to change that. And I know that's a big statement, but that's how I feel. So Yaz, I know that you are a Hadjar fan, so was the Hadjar moment the moment of the season for you? or was it Hülkenberg's podium?
Oh, it's hard because I'm with you. Like Hülkenberg waiting all those years for that podium. I don't know. I think it's just Hadjar's like a face and like his own surprisement. Like I don't know if you saw on the broadcast, but once he parked his car up after the race, he like didn't know where to go. He's like, "Did I go this way?" Like what? It's just listen. Both moments are just so wholesome, and I'm so happy for both of them. I'm also like really surprised that just we're having like a lot of like teams that, you know, wouldn't be up at the top of the grid getting up there. I think like there's been a bit of everyone's not on the same playing field, but smaller teams are kind of getting those chances to perform well. I mean, we had Ollie Behrman in P6 this race. So, and we'll get on to that later, but I mean, just incredible stuff from all the teams. And again, go you Hadjar. I mean, incredible stuff, and just his face will be engraved into my head of just how shocked and surprised he was. So with Hadjar grabbing his first podium in his first year in F1, like, do you think this ups his value in the F1 market? Like, I know everyone's saying, oh, you should go to Red Bull, you should go to Red Bull, but do you think there'll be other teams on the grid that might grab him for next year or a couple of years down the line? Or do you think it's far too early to start saying, oh, he'll be moving to, I don't know, Audi, or, well, we know he's not going to Audi, but just other higher up teams?
I think that teams will kind of start to be interested, but I think he needs to prove himself a little bit more, because one podium doesn't mean everything. But I would say that, you know, out of him and Liam, he's definitely looking more favourable. But I think that if I was him right now, I would kind of stay where I am, and I also think the team would want him to stay. But I think that other teams might be interested in him. I don't think he might necessarily be like the first choice right now, just because there are so many drivers on the grid who have more experience and have proven themselves in different ways than Isack has. But I think that, you know, he should be prepared that he might be starting to have conversations with other teams, but I don't think that will mean that next season he will be at a different team. I think in a couple, like maybe at the end of next season, if he continues to do really well, or the year after, that's when things will kind of like start to shift. But I think right now he's happy where he is, or at least this is what I believe, that he's happy where he is. And like, I would hope that VCARB are happy with like the progress that he's making. And then he might start having chats with teams and be encouraged to have chats with teams. But I don't think that will go anywhere right now. Would you kind of agree with that? Or do you think that, you know, there are going to be some teams that are going to kind of be hounding on his door, wanting to chat with him and kind of want to bring him over to their side?
I agree with you that I think it's far too early to just grab a rookie. He's, again, done incredibly well throughout the season, but just grab them and be like, okay, we're going to stick you in a more powerful, experienced team. I think it's just, that's how you dampen out talent. And we see time and time again with Red Bull, you bring people up to the top team that aren't ready for it. And that's not an insult to Hadjar or anybody else. It's just, I think you need to nurture talent a bit more, because this sport is so cutthroat. The minute you're not performing, it's like, right, out, who's next? Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you think of the progress that Hadjar has done, I mean, his first race, he crashed out in the formation lap. Like that moment he had with Lewis Hamilton's dad, I'm just incredible stuff, Hadjar. And I just like, I'm so happy, and I can't wait to see like what the rest of his season does for him and where he ends up in the points and the standings this season, and then for the rest of his career. I think he's definitely going to be one to watch out for. But on the other side of the garage, yeah, on the other side of the garage, Liam Lawson. Oh. Daniella, where do we want to start? I mean, that collision with Carlos, hard to watch. What are your opinions on the 10-second penalty that Carlos got? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it was more of a racing incident? Because I've seen a lot of people's opinions are it was a racing incident. I'm not too sure. What are your opinions?
I I don't know. I still am not sure. Even when it happened, I was like, I don't know what I think of this, which is kind of rare for me to say about an incident, because usually I come in and I'm like, I don't even need to see a replay. I know who, I'm like, sure, I know who's at fault here. And I'm pretty, like, not to like toot my own horn, but I'm pretty good at predicting penalties and who's at fault and like what the outcome's going to be. Even though I know that's a like kind of big thing to say when the FIA decide to choose things all over the time. But sometimes we're on the same wavelength. Other times we're very much not, because they are kind of have their own little world and they make up their own rules. But with this one, I really didn't know which way it was going to go. I kind of almost thought, I was like, is Liam kind of at fault here? Like, I still don't really know. Obviously, the FIA have gone with that it was Carlos. But I think that Liam needs to be careful, because he is making enemies very quickly. He hasn't been in F1 that long in the grand schemes of things, but he's definitely making drivers strongly dislike him. And you're always going to have a rivalry between drivers, and there's always going to be someone that you don't quite like, but he's getting to the point where other drivers are getting very, very frustrated with him, because he is taking it that step too far. And I was not expecting this from him. I really enjoyed seeing Liam race in Formula 2, and all I wanted was him to make it into Formula 1. But since he made that like jump up to F1, apart from like his first few races that he filled in for Daniel Ricciardo in 2023, for me he hasn't really been standout since. And I kind of sat here and was like, oh my God, like I really wanted him to be in F1. And now he's here and I'm like, actually, I'm not too sure. And when he kind of speaks out and like gets very aggressive on track and annoys other drivers, I'm kind of like, oh no, like what have we done? Like, I really want to root for you, but I also feel like I can't, because you're doing things that just, I think, like is unfair and quite childish. And I think that he comes across like he thinks that he is the be all and end all. And I understand that you kind of need to have a little bit of that mentality to progress. That you need to have faith in yourself, right? But I think that he comes in with like this attitude of like, I don't care about anyone else. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to fight all of you, and I'll do whatever it takes, to the point where it's like he'll go too far with it. And so I can kind of see a little bit from Carlos's perspective of like, this doesn't feel like a guy that I want to race with. Like I think in one of his quotes, he was like, he said something along the lines of like, going into that turn, other drivers would be more respectful. But when I saw that it was him, I knew it wasn't going to be respectful. It was something along those lines. Please don't like quote me word for word on that, because I know that was not completely 100% accurate, but it was something along those lines. And that made me think like, okay, that is really telling about what other drivers think of him. So I know that obviously Carlos is frustrated because, you know, like that resulted in him having a poor race. And then, he obviously gets penalised for it. But I would kind of hate to think that, you know, that's what if I was a driver and that's what other drivers thought of me, of like, okay, other drivers can be more respectful and like we're not going to end each other's race, but as soon as they see him, they're like, oh great, he's just going to crash into me. And like, not even like in a racing way of like, oh, he's going to beat me, he's going to overtake me. It's like, okay, he's going to end my race for literally no reason. Like, that's just a sad thing to kind of think about. This has gone very long-winded. I feel like we've used this word a lot today, but my short answer is I don't really know. But I don't think, even though Carlos got the penalty, I still don't think it makes Liam look any better. Does that make sense?
This seems to be a thing with Liam. Unfortunately, I mean, on the radio, Carlos was like, "This guy again," and this is like a recurring thing that you hear other drivers saying, like, "He's doing it again. He's being aggressive again." And that makes me nervous for Liam, because not every team is going to want a really aggressive driver. That may work for Racing Bulls and Red Bull, but it's not going to work for every team. And I just don't want people seeing him as like, in a way that he's like cheating. He's just pushing people out, kind of like how Max Verstappen is slightly viewed. I think Liam really needs to be careful on that front. a really disappointing kind of weekend for Liam. And again, he hasn't been doing the best. And I think this kind of aggressive behavior, this is aggressive driving, I should put it in better words like that. I think it's because he wants to show himself that he wants to show that he deserves a seat in Red Bull, in the sport, especially, you know, being demoted so quickly from Red Bull. I mean, I would want to prove myself. I mean, I think any driver would. And it's just a shame that I think he's like trying too hard. Not to be rude, Liam. If you're listening, not to be rude. But I'm just worried about his career, and I really hope that he, you know, kind of eases up a bit, because he's just going to end up getting into more collisions like this. And I really do think Carlos didn't deserve the 10-second penalty. I think it should have either be 5 seconds or just a racing incident. It's one of those incidents. Again, we don't have all the data like the stewards do, but from what it looked like, it's kind of hard to tell he was at fault. But anyway, I know, kind of a downer. But one positive I want to bring up, again, we'll be moving on to a different team in a minute, but about racing bulls, and it's something that I noticed this weekend. There is a lot of female representation I saw in that garage, and not just from like outside people coming in to view the garage, but like people that, you know, women that worked at Racing Bulls. What was your reaction to someone who has worked in the motorsport world, seeing like that many women working in a garage? Like, because for me, I was like, hell yes, let's go.
Absolutely. I think that this is what we need to see more of. It's what young girls need to see more of. Getting a glimpse into that garage and seeing so many women made me feel so proud to work in a sport that is clearly progressing. And it's hard because sometimes it feels like it really isn't. Like, it's taken until 2025 for us to get our first female race engineer. And then we had a film come out that was literally called F1 that kind of, I can't think of a nicer term to say on it, but basically shitted on that. And so it's hard to then kind of see yourself working in this sport because there's not that many women that do. And that was the thing that I found really difficult, was like, I wanted to work in motorsport. I didn't know how. I didn't think I was going to get accepted. And it wasn't until I watched W Series, where I watched a series that, even like outside of the drivers, was predominantly like female led, that I thought, oh my God, I could do that. I genuinely thought it was all just going to be men, or you had to be like this exceptional woman to be able to work in this sport. And that narrative is shifting, that obviously like the women are exceptional because like they're pretty damn cool to work in Formula One. But we're seeing more of it, and it's making it more accessible. And I sit here and I think, wow, like we're so lucky that this is changing and that we get to see this. And I can't imagine like what it's like for young girls, 5, 6 years old, sat watching F1 with their families, and then seeing a garage with loads of women in it and thinking, oh, I could do that one day. I didn't have that growing up. It didn't hit me until I was in my 20s that I could turn this into a job. So I really hope that that's how other girls feel about it, and that they know that like they can turn this into a career. And it not only was that in the case of VCAR, but also on the podium for McLaren, there was also a woman, and I do apologise, I don't actually know her name. But that made me feel so emotional. I was like, we've only seen a woman on the podium a handful of times. And I hope that this is something that we continue to see more of, because every time we do, I just get so excited and just filled with joy that we're finally getting to see that representation. That we're finally going to have women that are doing so much for the teams that people don't know about, but now they're kind of being showcased. And usually we kind of see it from Rebel, because we usually see it from Hannah Schmidt. She'll go on to the podium occasionally. But we do not get it very often. And so it's really reassuring to see women being either in the garages or on the podiums and kind of having their work like championed too.
Yeah, it's incredible, and really, really incredible. And if you're a woman out there feeling like, how do I get into motorsport? Yes, you can do it. It's possible. Many people, whether you want to be an engineer, be on the pit wall, a driver, even doing social media stuff, you can do it. Whatever you want to do in motorsport, it is possible. It is not just a man's world. It is not just a white man's world either. It is possible. So listen to me and do it. It's such an amazing career as well. And I know, like, Daniela, you've had a longer career in motorsport than I have, but whether it's a short stint that you do in motorsport or a long stint, or if you change careers throughout, like, it's such a rewarding place and people are very accepting. Cannot speak today. So yeah, give it a go if you're thinking about it.
I haven't had that long in motorsport. I don't want people to listen
Yes,
and be
you
like,
have.
oh my God, it's had years. I have only worked in motorsport for 2 seasons. So it's not
Don't
that
care.
long.
Daniela knows everything. She's very knowledgeable and she deserves to stay in motorsport. So
Thank you very much, Yas. You also know a lot. But I just don't want people to like listen and thinking that like I think that I know everything, because I know that I don't know so many things that I can work on, and like I know that I don't know things from like the driver's perspective, and I don't know everything, and I never will know everything. But if you do your research and you care a lot and you're enthusiastic and you put yourself out there, like that's how you're gonna progress. Like I don't want to kind of completely go off the bandwagon here, but like I put myself out there, making content videos, learning as much as I could, writing articles, doing everything I could to kind of get my name out there to begin with. And then that's how I got discovered to then like join you and Brianna. And then from that's how I then progressed into the career that I have now, getting to work in motorsport. And it comes from the enthusiasm. I know that has been a big part of my career and like how I've gotten this far. So I think no matter which part of the industry you're trying to get into, if you have the enthusiasm, the willingness to learn, that's what's going to get you far. It's the attitude. And people used to say that to me at school, and I used to get so frustrated being like, but my exam results aren't reflecting that. Like, yes, I'm enthusiastic and I really care, but like I'm not getting anywhere. Like I'm failing. Like what's going on? Like I just don't get it. But they meant that like in the future that's what was going to matter, but I just couldn't see it in the moment. So if you've ever felt like that and you're like you're just not getting anywhere, there will be a time where it shifts, because it's your mentality and like how you feel about it that is going to get you really far. Anyway, sorry for the absolute rant, but I just wanted to share my kind of experience of working in motorsport, because it is not for the faint-hearted. And it's why a lot of most of the season I don't get to do the podcast as much as I like, because I end up working like 14 hours on race weeks like every day, and so it means that like I have to kind of sacrifice things. So it isn't for the faint-hearted, but if you are dedicated enough, you can make it happen. Anyway, that's my like little segment over about working in motorsport.
And
one day,
if you guys listening are really interested in kind of like Daniela's journey in motorsport, we'll definitely do an episode and maybe talk more about it. But let us know in the comments if you are interested in that, because Daniela is very interesting way that she got into motorsport. So let me know. Anyway, I'm very wary of time. We're an hour in and we have not even like, there's so much still to cover. So quickly, I'm going to go over Mercedes. George Russell involved in contact with Leclerc, damaging his car. He still managed to bring it home in P4, salvaging a strong result. But he did feel like a podium was possible without the collision. Then on the other side of the garage, we had Kimi Antonelli. Oh, what a weekend he had. Had a big rookie mistake, colliding with Leclerc on lap 53. Again, the Mercedes, like they just seem to be gunning for Leclerc this weekend, especially in this race. Antonelli classified P16 with a 10-second time penalty. He admitted fault post-race, saying, "This contact is on me. Next time I need to wait." So, first question, Russell finishing P4 with damage. Do you think it was a gritty drive or proof that Mercedes are still kind of way off the pace?
I don't think that they're way off. I think that they've just had a bad weekend. I think most of the season things have kind of started to look more up, and I've been really impressed with like the way they were heading. I think that the person I've been more worried about has been Kimi, because I'd say since Imola he's kind of, and including Imola, has kind of like dropped off, and that is what was kind of in my mind has promoted Isack to be like, for me, the rookie of the season, because he's like maintains a consistency, and then obviously has had an exceptional race this weekend, where Kimi has kind of shown that he is a rookie. Like, we've seen some exceptional moves from him. He has had a podium this season as well. Like, let's not forget that. But he has made more mistakes. And I'm just concerned that he's just going to keep sliding down the pack as the season continues, which is like a shame because he was doing so well at the start of the year. Like, he was having a really great start to his F1 career. I don't know if things just got to him a little bit. Like, I don't know what's going on. But it's hard to watch when he's making these rookie mistakes. Like, I'm emphasizing on the word rookie here because they are rookie mistakes, and I understand that he is also a rookie. But when he first came in, he kind of exceeded a lot of expectations and kind of calmed the nerves of a lot of F1 fans, and I'm guessing Mercedes as a whole as well. I think that George has kind of proven, that he is strong and that he knows what he's doing and that he can lead a team. This is the first time that we've seen him lead Mercedes throughout his career, and I think he's doing a very good job, and I think that he's proven that he is a contender. I think that this was a weekend that they'll want to forget, even though George came out with a good result. I just think that heading into the next 9 races, they need a little bit more consistency. I think they're going to get that from George, but I'm not 100% sure they're going to get that from Kimi. But I wouldn't completely write them off. I think that they can come back stronger, and I think that George will really make that happen. And I'm not saying that it's not from the lack of trying from Kimi, because he is trying. It's just, unfortunate that sometimes this is how things go. And he admits to his error. He knows it was his own fault. And he said that next time he won't make that move again, and he's going to learn from it, which I think is the right way to come out and say, this is where he kind of differs from Lawson, kind of trying to deflect from mistakes that he's made and almost kind of put the blame onto somebody else, where Kimi has gone, no, that was my own fault. I apologize. I'm going to work on this. This is now something that I know not to do next time. And for me, that's what makes Kimi look more standout and a driver that if I was a team would want to be invested in, because then I would know that he wouldn't be trying to crash into his teammate every day. Where Liam, not so much. So I think that as a whole, Mercedes will progress more. I'm not going to say that they're going to be completely fighting for the Constructors' Championship, but I think that they're not going to start to completely drop back. I think they're going to either maintain where they are or try and push more forward.
With Kimi's performance kind of slowly going downhill, do you think this kind of rookie mistake of that clash that he had that caused Leclerc to DNF, do you think he was trying to be overconfident, overcompensate, and try and prove his worth a bit more, try and pull out these risky moves to kind of show that, no, I've got it, I'm going to pull out these moves and try and get back up the grid? Or do you just think it was a rookie mistake, let's not all think too much into it?
I think it was a little bit more of a rookie mistake. I think he wanted to try and just get ahead, but I don't think he kind of fully thought through how he was going to do it, and I think that's where things started to go wrong. I think
Agreed.
He couldn't. I think to be a racing driver, now obviously I'm not a racing driver, so I don't know. I feel like you kind of almost need to think 2 steps ahead, and I think in that moment he wasn't thinking like that, and that is what resulted in the incident. I think he kind of just saw the now and was like, I want to be ahead, but he hadn't thought through how he was going to get there, and that's what then resulted in the crash.
Agreed, and hopefully, we won't see this forever with Kimi. Again, we saw how much potential he had at the start of the season, and I'm sure we will see that again. This is not a write-off for Kimi. Maybe this race was, but we'll see him back at the top. I'm sure we will. But the next team I want to talk about, and it's a team I don't really want to talk about, to be honest, it's Ferrari. It's Ferrari. I wouldn't be surprised that this is why Brianna has not joined us today. Brianna is a huge Ferrari fan, and she couldn't make it today, but I would not be surprised if she couldn't take the pain of talking about Ferrari. So let's just kind of go over it. Let's start with Lewis Hamilton, okay? crashed out on lap 23 at turn 3 in the damp conditions again. This weekend, the weather was kind of off and on with bits of rain here, bits of rain there. This is his first DNF since joining Ferrari. This is extending his 15 race podium drought, as we shall call it. He picked up, on top of all this, a 5-place grid penalty for Monza next week. And this was because he, for a yellow flag violation early in the weekend. Oh, and it just gets worse. It just gets worse for Leclerc as well. He suffered contact with Russell, who again managed P4 still. He later spun into the wall after a clash with Antonelli on lap 53. Out of the race, leaving Ferrari with a double DNF before Monza. It's just been a hard watch, and it was even harder watch when you see Charles Leclerc stranded on this like sand dune, just like sitting there, just with his head in his hands. It's been a time for Ferrari. So let's get into it. Is Hamilton's crash a one-off blip, do you think, or is it a sign he's pushing too hard to cover Ferrari's weaknesses?
That's a really good question. And I'll be honest, I don't know. I think it could be a little bit of both, which I know doesn't make sense, but I think that, as I've said multiple times this season, that we needed to kind of give Lewis some kind of grace to adapt to the car and the team, the dynamics. And I think that this kind of resulted in him reaching that point where he's kind of lost self-doubt. Like, he said a lot before the summer break that, like, pretty much that he's done. Like, he doesn't have the faith that he's a good driver anymore, which is a really sad thing to say when you're a 7-time world champion and a lot of people view you as the GOAT. I think that he is kind of doubting this move to Ferrari because he thinks he's not good enough to be there, which I think is crazy that someone of his nature and have had so much success is now having these doubts. And I don't know if it's part of it is also like, there's a lot of pressure, right? You know, you've had a lot of success. You're a 7-time world champion. You've moved to a team that everyone wants to win a championship with, that drivers have tried over the last few years and have been unsuccessful. You look at the likes of Vettel, who moved to Ferrari to try and get that next championship with them, and it didn't work. So Lewis wants to do the same, and it's not working, and he's struggling, and he now thinks he's not good enough. And that breaks my heart a little bit. And I haven't actually seen what he said about this crash. I haven't looked into really anything kind of from him directly, so I'm not sure how he's feeling and what he said. But I imagine that this is kind of added to that knock of the confidence that he already had to begin with. But I also am hoping it's a one-off and like, this was a mistake. He went on to a bit more of a damp section of the track, lost control. These things happen. Yeah, I just think it was just a really, really difficult weekend for him. And obviously he's not going to be best pleased heading into Monza with a 5-second time penalty.
Oh, it's tough. It's so tough. It's so tough. You know, we're heading into Monza, and I was thinking, you know, it was coming up on my memories on my phone. I was in Monza last year. I was there a year ago. It was a year ago today. Well, not today, a couple of days ago. And, you know, I was there when Ferrari won, and the atmosphere, and just, you honestly would have thought, like, I don't know, like something, just the incredible atmosphere that Italian fans have is on another level. Sea of red, everyone cheering like the Ferrari's on, and it's not going to be like that this season. Like Monza is going to be such a downer, I think, for the whole team, especially because Ferrari know how dedicated their fans are, and when, you know, you keep messing up strategy and they're just not learning from their mistakes. And I know this weekend is kind of an anomaly. You know, it wasn't really anybody's fault. Again, Hamilton's crash is kind of on him. But it's just, I just don't know what we do with Ferrari. And we'd say it every year. Next year they're going to change. Next year they're going to change. They're going to do this different. They're going to learn. The car is going to be better. But there's always something. And I'm sure Lewis Hamilton knew this at the back of his head when he moved to Ferrari. He saw Sebastian Vettel go. He saw everyone else go. He saw the trial and tribulation that Charles Leclerc has gone through, and it just doesn't get better. And I just feel honestly the worst for Charles Leclerc because he is such a talented driver and he just gets, I'm just going to say it, fucked over every weekend, and I just feel awful for him. Do you think kind of Leclerc being stranded on that sand dune with no lift, do you think that's kind of a symbol of Ferrari's struggles this year? Because I certainly do.
Yeah, that is completely, absolute symbolism. It's something out of a novel.
Yeah, it's like the amount of photos we have of Charles Leclerc after a DNF, and it's just like the one in France a couple of years ago. Oh gosh, what track was that? And you can just see his head is in hands. It's like the amount of photos we have of Charles Leclerc just in distress is concerning. But my next question to you is: has Ferrari's momentum completely stalled since Hamilton's arrival? Because again, like I mentioned last year, we were doing okay. Again, Monza last year on the podium. I just feel like, I don't know, there's something in the air this season with Ferrari.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they've kind of lost their momentum a little bit, and it's really hard being a Ferrari fan at this time. And we've had glimmers of hope from Leclerc a little bit this season, but nothing crazy. And a lot of that I think is down to the fact that, often both Leclerc and Hamilton have to come up with their own strategy and have to figure out everything out on their own because the team's lack of communication is a massive problem. And that has been the case for years now. That's not anything new. But I think that they haven't at the moment got what it takes to be competitive. And I'm not sure if that will change before the end of the season. In fact, I don't think it will change for the end of the season. I'm hoping that 2026, the new regulation changes, Ferrari can figure out what they need to do to kind of bring it back up to fighting again. Because there was a time when they were a lot more competitive. But the last few years, even since I don't know, even when Sebastian Vettel was with the team, there was just something missing. And I just feel like nothing's really changed. And I don't know what they need to do to get it back. But every year, I just feel like I'm left disappointed by them. And this year's no different. This year's worse. So I don't think anything's going to change for the end of the season.
Ugh, it's painful. And we do it to ourselves every year. Every year we do it to ourselves. It's going to change this year. I can feel it. Nope. Nope. And we talk about it at the podcast all the time. Oh, do you think Ferrari are going to do well next year? Hopefully they'll learn. But I've given up. I don't care anymore. They don't care about the fans. They just want to make our lives miserable. I hate to hear in their strategy. It's always crap. And I'm getting far away. I'm getting just next. Let's just move on. Because I'm just gonna get angrier and angrier. So yeah, disaster for Ferrari. Do you think, and I don't even know why I'm going to ask this question, do you think they're going to be in the top 10 next race? Because the pressure's on.
I think one driver will, but
Who?
another driver won't. I think Leclerc, because I think Hamilton's penalty is just going to, his grid place hunter will just completely mess him up. So I think that
the penalty.
all hope is literally riding on Leclerc. And as long as he doesn't have an incident, I think he can handle it. But I'm not he needs to have a good qualifying. If he has a bad qualifying, game over. I'm not even gonna count on it. But it's all kind of now relying on if he gets a good qualifying.
Let's just move on. Williams. Let's talk about Williams. Yay! Forget about Ferrari. Alex Albon, I mean, a brilliant race he had. A brilliant recovery, to be honest, from P15 to P5. I mean, goddamn. Go you, Alex. I think best finish of the season for him, showing Williams' potential in the tricky conditions that we had. And I mean, he gained 5 places on his first lap. He just managed to capitalise on all the chaos that was kind of going on around him. Carlos Sainz, of course, we touched on it. 10-second time penalty. Was very frustrated on the radio. And, you know, I think it's even more frustrating because I think Carlos has kind of these past couple of races been catching the pace of Alex and improving. Kind of, you know, it's taken him a while, but he's getting there. Yeah. So, Alex, P5 to P15. Do you think this was like the drive of the season contender?
No, but I think it was a very good drive. I'm very impressed with Alex, and he continues to always push the car to the absolute maximum that he can get out of it. And this weekend was no different. But I wouldn't say it's my favourite, just because there is someone else, especially this weekend, that has for me, blown my mind. So I'm going to switch this quickly from Williams to Haas. But Ollie Behrman, his performance this weekend, he was personally my driver of the day. He went from starting in the pit lane to finishing 6th. Now, regardless of him being a rookie, if any driver did that, I would be impressed. But a rookie did that in a Haas. And I just am like, sorry? And now I understand that we had a few DNFs, but even still, that was such an impressive drive. But I feel like we barely got to see him. And the same for Alex, the pair of them. I feel like I barely saw them on TV the whole time, and they were having an absolute storm of a race. And I'm just, so impressed with the pair of them. So I think that it was a good performance from Alex. Still not my favourite. And also my favourite Alex performance was Australia 2023, maybe, when he nursed his tyres right until the end. And he was like the tyre whisperer. And he was doing so well. And that has been my favourite Alex Albon drive. And I've not seen... there's not been a moment for me that has compared to that, because that would just always be my favourite Alex Albon moment.
I completely forgot about that. That was a great moment. Yeah, you're making me relive that race. I mean, go Alex. I mean, I think Alex just shows what an incredible driver he is. Again, he's not in the best team on the grid, but he sure pushes that car, and Williams is slowly progressing, I think. With that, do you think that Albon's result shows Williams is quietly improving, or do you think it was just down to kind of the chaos that we had this weekend?
A mixture of both. I do think the chaos kind of added to the success of both Alex and Ollie. But I think that, they kind of knew that Sainz's race was over when he got that penalty. So I think it was all the focus just in on Alex. And Alex was able to kind of utilise that in the best way possible and come out with a really great result. And I do think that, Williams were having a stormer of a season to begin with, and then they dropped off. But I feel like maybe this could be the turning point for them. Obviously, it wasn't for Sainz, but I definitely think it was for Alex. And I'm hoping that, we can end the season on a high. I am biased because I am a Williams fan, and I really want them to do well, and I really want them to have success. It's why I was hoping that Adrian Newey was going to move over to them. But I understand why he's gone to Aston Martin. So I think that, they can and they will kind of turn this around. It might take a little bit longer than we hope, but I think by the end of this season, they'll have more consistent top 10 finishes.
Agreed. I think James Vowles has just done such an incredible job with that team. And I keep thinking about when Lance Stroll was at that team, how bad it was. Do you remember just how awful Williams was? And even from then, the improvement has been incredible. And I just really hope we keep seeing Williams climb up the grid. Imagine Williams top 3. Imagine that. I don't know. I'm I'm just getting into my reminiscing about the 90s of when Williams is just on top of the world. But anyway, I'm getting distracted. We still have more teams to talk
reminiscing
about.
of the 90s, and you weren't even born then.
I wasn't born, but I say this because my mom talks about the 90s of Formula One all the time. She shows me all the videos of when she was there. So I feel like I've lived it. And I was born in 2003.
Just like, it was the words like specifically like reminiscing, as if like you're
Reminiscing.
thinking of the times when like you remember Williams doing well, and I'm like, yeah, she was.
I wasn't
you
there.
weren't even born. You weren't alive.
No, I'm living, vicariously through my mother when she saw Williams. And what am I talking about? Why am I hosting today? I can't even straight a sentence together today. Oh my god! Right, moving on to Aston Martin. You can tell that we're an hour and 25 minutes into this because I was born in the 90s apparently. No. Aston Martin. Okay, a good finish for Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. Lance Stroll finished P7, a good result after the big crash that he had in qualifying. And especially, shout out to the Aston Martin, the team, getting Lance Stroll's car ready. I mean, that poor team just seems to Lance Stroll has always kind of been in it now and again and having to completely redo his car before a race. So go on the engineers. Fernando Alonso battled to P8 and was very, very angry on the radio. So both cars in the points, which has been a surprise for Aston Martin's just performance this year, has just been down the drain. Have Aston Martin found enough pace, do you think, to stop sliding backward in the midfield? Or do you think, again, that this is just kind of a lucky one for them because half of the grid DNF'd?
I think it was more lucky one just because their results haven't been outstanding for a while, and I think they kind of needed a moment to uplift themselves, and this was it. But I won't expect this going forward for the rest of the season. I think that this was a little bit more of an anomaly. I'm so shocked that the team managed to get that car ready and that Lance had a good race, because he kind of had such a poor rest of the weekend that I wasn't expecting him to finish in the points, because I just thought, right, he's gonna struggle. What a disaster of a weekend, but he turned it around. And then to have also Alonso right there with him, I'm was very happy to see, but I'm not remaining optimistic that it's going to continue. I'm really sorry, Aston Martin. I just, my optimism has very much dwindled for Alonso and Aston Martin over the years. And until we kind of get the full-on Adrian Newey car, that's not really going to change.
I just keep forgetting that Adrian Newey is there, because I just look at how, and again, I know Adrian Newey hasn't designed this year's car, but I just keep going how are we gonna bring it back next season? And I keep hoping to see, Fernando or Lance kind of up the grid a bit more, but they've just been nowhere. I feel like we've hardly talked about them this season. So I really hope that, it kind of pays off next season and they just focus on the 2026 season that's coming up. But yeah, this is a year to just write off for Aston Martin. It's just really not been good. And you can hear the frustration in Fernando's voice and those radio messages. I mean, take a shot every time that man is angry, because you will be hammered. So not a good one for Aston Martin. But again, you've got Adrian Newey on your team. You'll be fine next year, okay? You'll at least, you'll be up the grid a bit. So moving on to Alpine. Alpine. Again, another team that I feel like is just nowhere. I mean, Daniela, what are your opinions on Alpine this season? I mean, Colapinto's in the team. Do you think he's been making much progress? Just what are your opinions?
I touched on this a bit in the mid-season review that we did, but I have written Alpine off completely this season, because everything that could have gone wrong for a team has happened to Alpine. It is a team that if I was a driver, I would be avoiding. It's not where it needs to be. They've lost out on a lot of things. They've lost out on key personnel within the team, that it is all just shambles and not an atmosphere that I think anyone would want to kind of get involved with. there's been talks about whether or not Colapinto was even going to be at this race and like whether they were going to change him like over the summer break. And I thought there was like this 5-race deal that he had, but I don't really know what's going on with them, and I don't think they know what's going on, and I think they're just playing it race by race. I kind of was expecting a little bit more from Colapinto, but with the way the team's heading, I'm kind of not surprised that he's not doing that great. The team has really kind of been putting a lot of their hopes and dreams into Pierre Gasly, but even he's struggling to maximize that car. And so for me, I just think that Alpine just need to kind of write off this year, look ahead to the future, because things aren't going to change this year for them at all. This is one of their worst seasons, and I think that it's genuinely like it's disappointing to see, and nothing, as I said, nothing's going to change that. I don't expect them to get many more points finishes this year.
Totally with you on that one. It's just been a write-off season for them. I mean, like there's nothing good I really have to say about the team, especially when we know who they're ran by, their team principal. So maybe it's karma. It's karma for him coming back into F1. I'm not even going to mention his name. Do you think Alpine might be regretting giving up doing so quickly? Again, I know that's hard to say, but they just kind of chucked him to the curb. They did a Red Bull, chucked him to the curb quickly, and then brought in another rookie. Do you think they should have had Doom for longer? I'm not trying to say that Colapinto was crap or anything, because this car just seems to be nowhere, but what are your opinions?
At the time, I was like really frustrated that they got rid of Doan, because I think that he needed more of a chance, and I still think I stand with that, to be fair. I think that he could have, given the time and the resources, that he could have then progressed, but with the way that the team's now headed, I don't think he would have been, like, even if he'd stayed with the team, he wouldn't have had that opportunity to progress and to develop, because I don't think he'd have had the right resources, the right personnel around him. So, yeah. Like, at the time, I was like, I want him to stay. But then looking at kind of what this team's become, I'm actually kind of glad he's not here to kind of witness the mess. Because I think that he would still get blamed for it. Like, people had all of these reservations around him before he even joined the team. And he didn't live up, not that he didn't live up to expectations, because they didn't really have expectation for him. Everyone had such low expectations that they were all just like, see, he is crap. And it's like, well, no, you haven't really given him the opportunity to prove that he's not. And with Colapinto, it's kind of been the reverse of, like, everyone was so excited to have him into F1. Like, he did really well when he covered Williams, when he covered there, and like he kind of made people be like, oh, we want him in F1, which I completely understand. Like, he is a good driver, but because of how the team has been and everything that's happened at Alpine, he's not done well, and neither has Gasly, and it's just the way that it is right now. And I don't think that would have changed if Doan was in the seat. I would like Doan to have had the full year, but with the way that everything happened, I'm kind of glad he's not here to be a part of all of that.
Yeah, so that has been this chaotic race. I mean, we've chatted for long enough. If you made it to the end, thank you for staying. We've done an hour and 30 minutes of just everything that has happened on this grid. It's been an incredible race to watch. A very exciting race, and we move on to Monza this week. So stay tuned for Ferrari not being on the podium and a lot of angry Italians, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Comment, like, share. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. Follow us. Again, we'll be yapping about Formula One to the end of the season and onwards. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hello, fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you, glad you came too.